Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Something Green virtual wedding fair brought to you by North London Waste Authority. So, on the chat that we last had, which I'm sure will be up on Facebook and Instagram for you to watch very soon, I was talking to Rachel about wedding planning, and now I'm here with Madeline from the Sustainable Bride. Hi.
Hello.
And we're going to be talking about how to find the perfect dress. So I think this is probably a big one for a lot of people who are maybe having a little bit of a panic about what they should wear on the big day. And I know that we're going to be talking specifically about, how people can look at vintage dresses and look at remaking. And I was actually looking at some polling, which North London Waste Authority did for this event to find out how people were feeling about sustainable weddings. And they found out that 22% of people who got married in COVID wore something vintage, which I think is actually quite a massive number. And I'm wondering whether, because people were having smaller ceremonies and they were having to do things a little bit differently anyway, whether it's given people a bit more free rein to, make something or buy something vintage or buy something secondhand.
Yeah, I think we've all slowed down, haven't we, in the pandemic, and sort of had a chance to think about everything and just, more time, obviously, if you are going to make something. But also in terms of a sustainability point of view, to kind of realise that the impact on the environment that having these dresses that are just worn for like a one-off day are kind of the impact they're having. So I've found some research as well that also after Princess Beatrice got married this year, in 2020, the search for vintage wedding dresses went up by 297%.
Wow.
Which was just incredible. So I think, there's lots of influencing factors.
And can you tell us a bit about what you do at the Sustainable Bride and how you got into the kind of sustainable wedding dress industry?
So I offer kind of 3 ways to approach making your dress. The first is a bespoke option, but with a real sustainable heart. So only sustainable fabrics, sustainable processes. I make everything myself. So it's a very one-on-one thing, but with a very, sustainable pathway. And I also really encourage the brides to kind of pass the dresses on afterwards as well. A reworked option, which is where people come to me with like an heirloom dress that's been passed down through family, or a secondhand dress, and we use that as a base to kind of create a new dress and work and alter that. And then also found, which is I have a collection of vintage and pre-loved dresses that I'm always sort of working on, and you can buy these from me, or we can use that as a base to start a new dress. So yeah, I'd been doing it. I'd come through all the kind of fashion route and taken time out to have children. And whilst I was doing that, started making dresses for friends and things. And I just kind of found that quite a few dresses and people were approaching me about were like these kind of heirloom dresses that they were coming to me saying, I've got my mum's dress, but it doesn't quite fit. And, do you think we can use it? And yeah, I just loved the kind of idea of it. So that's why around a year ago now, I think it was. Terrible time to start a wedding business, but I kind of did it a bit more officially after doing it sort of unofficially for about 7 years or something. So yeah, and here we are today.
And have you noticed a kind of uptick in the kind of people who are interested in vintage dresses or sustainable dresses? It's becoming, I guess, more the norm than it might have been a few years ago.
Yeah, definitely. I think people are, it's the kind of thing, isn't it? There's so much in the media and stuff about, you know a lot about this, Sarah, about fast fashion and, garments being unworn and, or being worn once and thrown away. And when you think about it, wedding dresses just totally fit in this territory, unfortunately. They are the epitome of this dress you wear for one day and then gets left in a cupboard. And so I think maybe the guilt of that is starting to outweigh the idea of having this kind of really like epic one-off piece. So people are kind of exploring that. And also just, again, with the slowing down of stuff, I think it's the story and the meaning behind wearing something as well. If you've kept a piece or it's been handed down, or there's something more about it that you can say I walked into the shop and I bought a dress. How lovely it is to be able to tell a story, especially on your wedding day, or, that it's been handed down. And so I think that's, becoming more kind of prevalent, I suppose.
Do you have a favourite kind of story from somebody who's come to you who wants an heirloom piece reworked and turned into something new?
I always talk about the same one, so I'm going to talk about something different for a change. I always mention.
Don't get your best story.
No, I will. I'll mention them a few. Fran is the one I normally always talk about because she came to me with this beautiful sari from the 60s that her mum had worn. And I just loved the idea of it, like that we took this sari and made it into this more of a modern style dress. But also another bride I worked with, Heather, who she had her mum's dress, which was this amazing 70s dress with this lace floor length caped hood thing overlay.
A caped hood?
Oh, it was incredible. It was just, I mean, you just have to have a look at the photos. And she wanted to use this dress, and she also wanted to try and get enough fabric to go into her flower girl, her daughter Elsie's dress. So that was really special, and it was a great example actually of making a dress bigger and not being put off by that, because this dress was a bit small for her. And that's the thing you often find with vintage dresses, is that they're a bit teeny. We've changed over the years. So we kind of embraced this and just we matched the fabric as closely as we could and put a whole panel through the back that became like a puddle chain, and had this kind of lace cape made into sort of this overlay that went over. And so it was kind of, with Elsie's dress as well, it was kind of ended up being 3 dresses that had started from this one. So that was a really lovely one to work on as well.
That's gorgeous. I need to see this caped hood.
There's pictures of her mum on the
I'm
Instagram.
going to go find that picture as soon as this is finished. I think that's a really interesting one, because what you were saying about sizing is what I imagine puts a lot of people off, that they know if they go into a shop, at least they're going to be able to try on something that's going to be in their size. They'll be able to find something that's fit, even if it's got to be changed a little bit. And I wonder how people can go about thinking a little differently about how they're putting their dresses together. So I guess it can just be a panel, or it can be an accent.
Absolutely, whole dress. Absolutely, and it can be that. I mean, often it's the case with like vintage dresses, especially, that even the total dress fabric might not even be in a good state. So it might just be the like the front panel, or it might be there's some lace in it. There's just might be something. So it's don't rule it out. And if it's especially if it's a picture of something you've seen online that's for sale, you could always send it to someone like myself, and I would always give advice on whether I thought it was possible to kind of do it. I'm always tried to be quite honest and transparent about these things, because it's an important day and people just I would give advice to that. So don't be put off. And the other thing as well is don't discredit something, especially if it's a 70s dress that's got like this crazy collar or something on it,
ruffles everywhere.
It's like, I don't know, dodgy sleeves. These are all things that one can be like removed and altered, especially a neckline. Just opening up a neckline makes a total difference to the dress. But also, if you are wanting to make something bigger, I mean, maybe if you are taking the sleeves off a dress, that's enough to make another panel in the bodice. Or if you're taking something shorter, maybe there's fabric in the hem, or so there's always things that can be done. And I love saving bits of dresses to make onto other dresses and things. So I've always got a stock of bits.
You're the person to come to use your skills. I love it. And you were talking earlier about the kind of sustainability of wedding dresses being the same as fast fashion, which I think is a really interesting one, because when most people think about fast fashion, we're thinking about a top that you buy for a £5 that is kind of bad quality and falls apart and you never wear it again. But actually, with a wedding dress is normally something that people are spending a little bit more money on. They're going to try and pick something which has fabric that's going to last for longer. They might be using like silks and satins and really heavy cottons, amazing materials, which might just end up sat in a cupboard for 20 years.
Exactly.
And I think that's an interesting, comparison to make.
Yeah, well, I suppose it's that thing. They are these well-made, amazing pieces, but I mean, it's very difficult if that piece is just going to be worn once and then sat in a cupboard. I mean, I think it needs a bit more life, I suppose. I think so. The way you could get around that is, by passing it on, by handing it down or reselling it afterwards, so someone else gets to share that. And I know there's lots of companies that do rental as well now, which is a great thing to think about too.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because it's something that I think has been more common in menswear for a while, that you would go down to the high street and rent all of the suits for the guys.
Absolutely.
and I don't think it's been a kind of as big a thing for dresses.
Yeah, well, when I was researching, I ran a thing on my stories recently where people were sending me pictures of their parents' dresses to kind of promote this kind of heirloom reworked thing. And I asked people to send me like a bit of information about which dress, and a lot of them actually were people saying, "Oh, this was my mum's dress. She rented this dress." And so I think maybe it's just something that's gone out of fashion, out of favor. And yeah, maybe, you know, it's starting to come back, you know, for all aspects, from the fashion point of view and a wedding dress point of view.
It's all coming back. And
It's all coming back.
if they have bought the dress and, you know, they've paid lots of money to pick the perfect thing and they have it in their wardrobes, is there a way that people can rework it afterwards? Is there a way to turn it into something that might be more kind of wearable on a day-to-day basis?
I guess that's something that maybe needs to be, in a way, could be thought about beforehand. I suppose, you know, whether you buy something, if you are going to buy something or have something made, like, do you consider things like having them as separates, so that might make it more wearable? Or would you think about wearing a dress that's got colour, because you're more likely to rewear that? But in terms of afterwards, I mean, I think there probably are ways of, you know, dyeing things, although that's not really sometimes that greatly great from a sustainable point of view. But it's, I guess, yeah, just be open to having it made into like a shorter dress. That's something you'd wear for an occasion or something. Yeah, there's definitely things that can be done. Or just, yeah, donate. I've had bespoke brides donate their dresses back to me, which is really amazing. And I've then woven them into other dresses. So this one dress that came back from Kerry has already gone into another 2 dresses so far. So there's always that option. And I think also there's some great like resale sites now that have come up where you can resell your wedding dress.
That's amazing. I love the idea that you can kind of keep this in a circular loop, so you keep that fabric going around and around and making it a part of somebody else's story
Yeah, absolutely.
afterwards.
It's all this story. It's all about the story for me.
We just had our first question come through, which is, what should you look for when you're looking at potential vintage wedding dresses? So do you have any tips for, you know, if you're in a shop, what sort of fabric should you be feeling for? What should you be looking out for to see if it's good quality?
I would always, if you are going to go down the vintage or pre-love route, would always start with a little bit of research and things at home. So look into eras and things of dresses that you like. And also, even if it's just a pre-loved style, think about, styles that suit you. So when you do go out and start looking, that you're a bit more focused, because it can be quite overwhelming to be presented with all these different styles and dresses. So in terms of like what to look for, I suppose just key details that jump out with you, whether it's like how the bodice is made, you know, maybe there's a beautiful pleating detail, maybe it's the cut of the dress, or you know, an embellishment. And like I was saying before, don't discredit things straight away just because it's got sleeves and you don't want sleeves, or, you know, collars and things like that. And fastenings, I suppose, as well, like if the zips are still working, or if they can be replaced easily. If there's really like beautiful vintage buttons but there's some missing, like, would you be able to match them, or would you replace them? And in terms of fabric, obviously the further back you go with vintage, fabrics are going to be more fragile and tend to be like silk and things. These are prone to yellowing with age, which is quite difficult to remove sometimes. And also silk does this really awful thing, which is called shattering, which is it just kind of, the silk dies, and you'll be able to tell because you'll see a small tear and you'll touch it and it'll feel like paper. And, you know, you don't want to feel like that on your wedding day, that you're wearing something super fragile and sit down and the dress rips. So just, I would check the structure of fabrics and things too. So yeah.
Those are very, very helpful tips. And on that bit about, I guess, the storage piece. So if you have bought this dress and you want to keep it so that you can pass it on, or for it to be, you know, remade into something else, is there a way that you can look after it on the day and afterwards to make sure that, you know, the fabric is in as good a state as possible?
I would just make sure, if you were going to have it cleaned, speak to the person who's cleaning it for you and tell them. There's often people that will package it up for you, because obviously you don't want moths and things to get to it. So I would just speak the advice of someone that's going to clean it for you and stuff, and just be careful with it on the day. Although one of my bespoke brides, literally just after the service, it was a wedding I got to go to, had this cocktail, and it was like a very dark pink colour, and it was, yeah, down the front of the dress. So every stain's a story.
Did it come out on the day, or did she just lean into it?
Do you know what? She just left it and was just like, it's fine. This is how it's going to be. Whereas I was like horrified. But yeah, no, it's fine. Just say, yeah, get it cleaned, put it into a storage proper box where moths aren't going to get to it. And yeah.
That's a really good piece of advice. And I'm asking everybody this because I think there's a common misconception that, choosing something sustainable, choosing something vintage is going to bump the price up of what we're paying for. So I just wondered if you could tell us whether that's true or not, and actually how people might be able to, get something vintage, get something handmade, and not have to, spend loads of money.
Yeah, I would say having something vintage or pre-loved is probably like the opposite of being expensive. I think that is, well, like you said, people think that sustainability, that route is either going to be really tricky or really, really expensive. And it's not the case at all. And I think if you're going into a shop and buying a dress off the peg or having something fitted to you, I think sometimes you're looking at least upwards of £2,000. And that's an incredible amount of money to spend on one dress. Bespoke dresses, can obviously cost a lot of money, but it's to do with fabrication as well. So I often tend to give my brides a price for the fabric and a price for the time. And I often will say, look, what's your budget? And we'll always work to that and find solutions and ways where we can bring budgets down. Vintage, again, doesn't have to be expensive. It's you might be finding a dress on a resale site or eBay or something, and then having it fitted. I mean, yeah, it's not an expensive process. It really isn't, and it shouldn't put people off, because people like me that exist will always try and work to a budget as well, and be really honest and transparent about where the costs are coming in and stuff.
And I guess the kind of benefit of that, and we were talking in the earlier session about being able to speak to your vendors and meet the kind of people behind all of these operations, so that you can find out how sustainable they are and the things that they care about. So having somebody like you who is a person that they can come and talk to, rather than a shop with lots of different fabrics where they might not necessarily know where all the dresses come from.
Well, absolutely, and that's what it's nice to go down that route, because you are dealing with a person. And I really encourage my brides to get really actively involved. So I'm often WhatsApping them, and they're often sending me things, and I encourage them to research stuff. And so it's a really holistic process that we're all involved in. But I mean, if people do want to go and buy something from a company, I would always suggest just to ask them, where the fabric's from, where the dresses are made, what is their sustainability ethos. And if they're not willing to tell you, then maybe that answers your question. So it's just research in terms of this. I mean, sustainability is a journey, and you're not necessarily going to be 100% on everything all the time. But if everyone starts making these small, steps on this journey, then you're gonna get somewhere, even if it's just one element that that you've kind of combated on that journey.
Yeah, that's a really beautiful point. And I think even just doing one thing as well will inspire other people. All of these stories that you're talking about, people who have been to that wedding or have met you will go on and tell other people, and maybe give them a little bit of inspiration as to how they could do things a little bit differently.
Absolutely.
You were talking about when you go into a wedding dress shop, or you're going dressing, look for styles that you like, and also things that suit you. And I think for a lot of people that might seem a little bit daunting. So I wonder how you go about when you're kind of fitting people or advising them on dresses. Are there any particular styles that you think are really classics that suit a lot of people that people should look out for?
I think whenever a bride comes to me and says, oh, I've got this idea for a dress, I say, have you gone and tried loads of things on, even things that you maybe think wouldn't suit you? But obviously at the moment, in the kind of climate that we're in, this is quite tricky. And also it's not quite the nice experience that it was, in a mask and potentially gloves or something. So I would recommend a couple of things, which is, one, think about styles of dress that you normally would buy and what you feel comfortable in. For example, if you don't like or you don't want to kind of show your tummy too much or things like that, think about maybe not having bias cut or things that are cut across the dress. Think about whether you normally feel comfortable in something that's an empire line, which is just under the bust, or whether you want something waisted. And the other thing is, remember what you feel comfortable in, but also ask your friends and family as well for their opinion. Like, they'll have a memory of you wearing something where they thought you looked fantastic. So that's always really confidence boosting to sort of know that. And I think location of your wedding as well should kind of inform a little bit of what you're going to wear. If you're having like a festival-y farm wedding, probably like a 2 meter long, hand embroidered lace train is probably not going to be the best option. If it's a more informal city, like registry office pub wedding, maybe consider something shorter even. And again, you're more likely to wear that again. So I think that's it. And just take a friend with you as well, someone that you trust and someone that's going to be honest with you. And as I said previously, I'm always quite honest with my bride and will suggest things. And, if I really think a neckline isn't working, I'll suggest that. So, yeah.
And I know this is a personal question. I'm going to be cheeky and ask it because I'm going to my best friend's wedding in Christmas, and I think this will have happened to a lot of people where it was meant to be May last year and it's now going to be a winter wedding, and we've all already got our dresses and we know what we're wearing, but they're definitely spring dresses. So do you have any advice on what people should do if they've suddenly had to change seasons, and how you can get something which will just cover us up but not be horrible?
I guess just trying to research and find like an amazing vintage cape with a lace hood.
The hooded vintage cape. That's what I need.
Cape. But maybe adding another layer, picking up something that's in the dress, and maybe having something made that is like a cape or something like you could just throw on for the evening. I think just trying to find an extra vintage piece, or trying to find something like that would be my best option, I think.
And do you have any top tips for where people should be looking for their vintage dresses? Because I think that can also be a little bit overwhelming if you think, there's local stores, there's kind of big vintage warehouses, there's a lot of stuff online.
I guess it's just kind of researching it, really. I mean, there's obviously all the online, big sites and things, and just lots of research. So you can kind of, as I said earlier, if you kind of think about what era it is and what you're looking for, there often be like specific vintage stores that are more, they might have more, 20s to 40s stock. There'll be the more kind of, 60s and 70s. So I think it's just research, really, and just kind of finding which kind of era you want to go for and then going for it from there, really, I think.
And somebody has commented asking how far in advance before the wedding someone should contact you about reworking a dress and how long that process takes.
Okay, so normally it's on average probably 6 months before, if it's like something that's being made from scratch or a reworked dress. But I have done and can do dresses in a really, really short time frame. It's kind of, I guess people, sometimes people have even come to me like a year before. But it just depends, really. I can work to any kind of time scale, really. But the process is, I can tell you a bit about how that would work. Is so people do get in touch and we have a chat. At the moment, it's via Zoom, the first consultation, or hopefully very soon in person, because I think that's really much nicer. And then what I do is I go away and kind of prepare a quote and things, and send that over. And if as I said before, you can always work out budgets and things. And then the next thing would be is a meeting in person for measurements, because I don't work from blocks. I don't have stock. Everything is made, at the time for one person. So I make everyone's patterns and measurements unique. So that's So then I would then make what's called a toile, which is like a first kind of mock-up in just like an organic cotton. It's not in real fabric or anything, and that's more that first fitting, and that is a lot, in a way, more for me as well, because it's about checking the measurements. And you often just look like you're kind of a pincushion with some fabric draped around you, and then it kind of goes from there. So there'll be a next fitting in the toile, and that second fitting, it's normally like really confirming shape and fabrication as well, so I can go off and research and order fabrics for you. Again, I don't have stock of that. Everything is ordered just for that person, so there's no waste. Yeah, and then we'll start fittings in the real dress. And I don't charge for fittings. I don't have a limit on how many fittings you can have. And generally the sort of the quote at the beginning doesn't really change unless the dress obviously radically changed. Yeah, and then we kind of just carry on, and I'll always aim to finish at least a week before or more, especially if the bride's traveling or something. Sometimes people want to finish a couple of weeks before, but mostly people just want me to kind of hold on to the dress to the last minute. So
I'd be terrified something would happen to it suddenly.
Yeah.
You just want to hold on to it for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, in case someone sees it as well, there's always that behind it, isn't it? So
that bit of the process where you're going away, if you're making something bespoke and you're looking for fabrics, I'm wondering what you look out for when you're choosing sustainable fabrics, and if any of that can carry over into what people should be looking for if they're buying something off the shelf or just in their kind of day-to-day purchasing of clothes. How do you know if a fabric is sustainable?
So there's lots of certifications now that are issued to fabrics, and they're not just about how fabric is made as well. They're how the fabric is woven in the fibres. It's about how it's made and having that socially responsible part of it, which is obviously very, very important. So there's if you're looking for something that's cotton, there's a brand GOTS, which is the Global Organic Textile Standard for cotton. So you want to look out for these. And there's the Okotex again, which is often fabrics that are made with plant fibers and things. That is a certification. And then if you are thinking about silks and things, there's piece silks and stuff, and obviously other fibers that silks are being made out of, bamboo and hemp and different things. But it's just making sure that especially with the fashion side of it, that it's something that's been made with socially responsible pathways, as well as just the fact that it's a recycled fabric or it's an organic fabric.
That is top tips. I think it's really difficult when there are so many different kinds of certifications and so many different kinds of fabrics. People don't really have an idea of what it is that they're picking out, which is why it's so nice to choose something which has that story. Somebody's just commented saying that they want to use Chantilly lace from their mother's wedding dress as a way to honour her on their wedding day. So that kind of the looping of heritage and bringing in stories and making that dress and piece of fabric really means something to you, which is
absolutely. And luckily, I think I was quite daunted by lace. And this bespoke dress I'm working on at the moment is taking me down this really lovely research pathway of that, because I wasn't sure if there was companies that were making lace sustainably. And I've found all these kind of old companies that have just realized that that's the kind of way to go. And there's lots of, it's just sustainability in fabric is a massive thing that's going off now. So it's becoming easier and easier to find, and especially in small meterage, which was always the problem before, because that's a big part of sustainability for me. It's not sitting on stock and sitting on all this stuff that could be being used. So being able to buy small meterage and just pieces of lace, which is normally sort of around 4 or 5 meters, it was really important for me to find. So the kind of list of suppliers goes up all the time with every dress. I don't always go to the same people. I kind of research what's the best pathway for that piece at the time. So constantly learning.
you have some really kind of bespoke skills in the way that you're talking about. I don't think I could look at a dress and say, oh, we can take off the sleeves and we can make it into a panel, and these kind of skills which I think a couple of generations ago, even a generation ago, would have been much more common if your mother or your grandmother or somebody else in your family would have been able to help you rework that dress. And I was wondering if these skills that have kind of died out are becoming more common and people are getting more of an interest in how their clothes are made.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think, again, it's especially this past year, I think everything has slowed down and people have had time to reflect. And so I think, and I really hope that all these kind of old skills will start to come back, and be more relevant, and, mending things and, just reworking things. It should be the norm, shouldn't it? We should kind of look at something in our wardrobe and think, oh, don't really wear that anymore, body shape's changed or whatever. Oh, but if I just took the sleeves off, or added a band of fabric on the bottom, it would be longer. Or so I think it would be really great if that does happen, and I do think it is. I do think it is.
And with that, I think we've come to the end of our time. This half an hour has flown by.
Yeah.
Can you tell everyone who's watching, if they're interested in, finding out more about how they can rework a dress, or interested in having a bespoke piece made, where can they find out more about you?
So on my website is just www.thesustainablebride.co.uk, or to see what I'm working on all the time is probably my Instagram, which is at the.sustainable.bride.
Well, I will be heading to find out if I need to buy myself a vintage cape immediately.
Lace hood.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you so much to everyone who's watching. We're going to have a quick break, and then I'm going to be back here at 2 when we're going to be talking about how you can plan for plastic-free wedding favours. Marta from Bottega Zero Waste is going to be joining us, and we're going to be chatting all about that. So come and find us then. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Sarah. Bye.